Let's see. Hello and welcome to Positive Fandom. I'm your host, Rrr Mmmm, and we have Reina Creole with us this afternoon. How are you, Reina Creole?
I am doing great, doing wonderful. So glad to be here and so glad to talk about this fascinating and entertaining movie with you and you guys out there watching the stream.
Absolutely. Hello to everybody out there. Tom Jr. Jackson, my moderator and collaborator. How are you, Tom? Ed Brewer says, hello, Lorena Creole is great. Midnight's Edge and Queen's Counsel for life. For life. I
Oh, thank
like
you
that.
so very much, Ed Brewer. I appreciate the wonderful compliment.
And we have Zacharat 315. Howdy, y'all. Well, howdy to you, Zacharat.
Hey,
315.
Zachariah.
We so appreciate the hellos out there.
Hmm.
Um, oh, thank you so much, Edward. I do appreciate that as well.
She sure is, isn't she?
Oh, thank you so
I love
much.
streaming with her.
Oh, I love it too. And today, we're talking about a film that was actually released on Amazon and also in the theater
Mhm.
as well, Lorena. I
Really?
mhm. It's in the movie theater, on limited screens, and I would actually go and see this movie in the movie theater. So, for anybody who's watching this, it is
Mhm.
available. The film that we're talking about is called All the Old Knives,
Mhm.
and it is a film that was released in 2022. And Lorena and I are going to be doing a spoiler review of it. So I'm just going to put my
Yes.
spoiler banner on here just to, so I hope I'm doing this right. Add it,
Yep,
please.
gotta say spoilers.
Absolutely. Okay, I think I did it. Yes. So anybody who's tuning in, we're lucky enough to have Lorena with us today to talk about a film that just I felt was so incredible. And as soon as I saw it, I was on, my show, Sunday Brunch, talking
Mhm.
about the film. And of course, Lorena stopped by and she, I'm saying, hi, Lorena, how are you? And she's like, I'm fine. How are you? And I started to talk about All the Old Knives, and you had said you saw it, and I said we've got to review this film, Lorena. It is a very special film. I think it is something that is amazing. And you agreed. And so here we are.
Yes, here we are. I was flipping out when you said that because 'cause every time I turn on my Fire TV, of course, all the adverts go up there and first thing that I saw was Chris Pine. Then I saw the title said All the Old Knives, and then I saw that it was on Amazon. I'm like, "Oh, okay. I definitely must watch that." And oh, it was awesome. So you were like, "Oh, we got to review it." I'm like, "Yes. Yes, we do."
Absolutely. And hello, Darth Plato. So glad that you're here to join
Hello.
us today,
Mhm.
as well as Cool Gamer.
Cool gamer.
Yeah,
Mm,
hi. So nice
very
to see
nice.
you. And Darth Plato, it's right from the get-go, says, I really like this movie. Yes, and we did too, Darth Plato. We certainly did like this movie. Lorena, this film is based on a book by a famous author who is actually very well known. I had actually never heard of him before, but
Really?
yeah, and apparently, I think he's like one of those New York Times best-selling authors. And I
Mhm.
looked it up. His name is Olin Stenhauer, and the movie was directed by Janice Metz Peterson. It is a spy thriller. Now, I have to be honest with you, Lorena. I
Mhm.
didn't know what this film was about when I, turned it on. But when I saw that Chris Pine and Thandie Newton were starring in it, I immediately
Mhm.
became interested in it.
Yeah, it's a spy thriller. Yes, definitely you have Chris Pine, Thandie Newton, two extremely good-looking people, so it's like, "Oh, yeah, obviously, gotta check it out." Hey, Latoya Lee, gotta check it out. On another note, because your girl, let's put it this way, because your girl worked in intelligence way back in the day,
Ooh.
anything that's like that, I immediately have to check out and watch. And it's one of those things where I watch it and how can I put this? Okay, I watch it. There's certain stuff that I just have to acknowledge in my brain, and other stuff that I have to kind of say, oh, okay, maybe that could possibly
Mm.
happen, but it's one of those things. If you've ever worked in intelligence, if you've ever been a spook or worked with spooks, so to speak, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Wow, I love this.
yeah.
That's fantastic because getting your insight from someone who's worked in the field makes this even more interesting and perhaps more informative review than just if it was just me because I've never done that. So I think that is incredibly interesting, and I'm so curious as to your point of view and how you interpreted this. Darth Plato asks, "Is this a spoiler chat?" Yes, it is a spoiler chat, and guys, I have the spoiler ticker tape thing right there
Mm-hmm.
that says it is a spoiler. So if you don't want to
Spoilers
know
are
what
spoilers are plenty.
that's right. If you don't want to know what happens, guys, just you can do the rewatch if that's the case. BC, aka the new Dark Shadow.
Hello.
Hi.
Good seeing you, BC.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us this evening. So nice to have you here. And guys, as I was saying, Lorena, I immediately saw Chris Pine and then I saw Thandie Newton. And I don't remember the last film that I've seen her, Thandie Newton, in, but she has had quite a prolific career herself. She is 49. She still looks like she's 20. So she's kept herself incredibly well. And I really wondered what this, film was going to be about. As I said, I had no idea going into it what it was about. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started to play it, and I was pleasantly surprised once I did realize, it's kind of like you get this. It starts off actually a little frightening because you see this airplane and you realize that
Mm-hmm.
something is wrong right away, don't you? And unfortunately, what you're witnessing is a hijacking on an
Mm-hmm.
airplane. And so
Yes.
it is very serious. And, it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? It's funny because the way that they did it, the context of it, it feels like you're actually on the plane. Now, it's very odd, orientation and point of view of it, because the way that
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at things, it kind of feels like you're there. And I almost wondered, as we get a little bit more into this review, as to whether or not you're actually looking at it from one of the characters' point of view. And I thought that was very clever
Mm.
to do because a lot of times, you see these types of movies and, you're given the point of view of the person who's telling the story, but I have a feeling that there's a character whose point of view that you are while you're on the plane. And so it took me a while to figure this out. I did not know this from the beginning, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just so impressed with what they did. And BKAKA, the new Dark Shadow, says, what Thandie Newton needs is some serious psychological counseling. Wow, wow. Maybe. I mean, this is something to think about. This
This
is a spy thriller.
is.
And the story starts out as I said, you see this hijack plane. And so
Mm-hmm.
the next thing you know, you're kind of like at CIA headquarters in Europe. It's a Vienna location, and they're
Right.
dealing with this incident, this serious incident of hijacking. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, it's very tense. We've seen so many situations in the past where you see things like this, and I've often wondered how they do handle stuff like this. And I really did like this approach. They got a wire from headquarters saying that there was a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and you have this unit of people who are working hard. And in the unit is Thandie Newton. And of course, at some point is her name is Celia in the story.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
their chief is played by Lawrence Fishburne, who was
I
fantastic in
know. I love
this.
seeing him. I love seeing him
Didn't he
in
look
uh
good in
in
this?
this. He looks great. And of course his acting gives him the gravitas of someone who is leading, or who's the station chief, there. And when he's going through, the briefing, for the day, and they get this tip where they're like, okay, we got this wire that something could possibly be happening. And we've heard in the news where anytime that there's a hijacking or something like this, there's something that they've gotten wind of or heard of something that could possibly happen. You seem to hear this after the fact. If there's a hijacking, you ever notice how fast they start to figure out or start to let you know exactly who claims responsibility for what, and kind of like the rumblings that they might have heard. So pretty much any show like, say, 24, um other spy thrillers that you've seen, even hijackings reported in the news, you notice it's the same buildup. The hijacking happens, then they start putting together who's possibly responsible for it going on, and then you start hearing all this stuff that they said, well, it could possibly happen, it might be this person, it might be that person. So it's like they're getting their information from their informants, on the ground. And that's where they're in there in the office trying to figure that out. Because if a hijacking like that happens, that's extremely high stakes. You've got innocents in, like, this, like, confined area, either if it's going to be on a tarmac, or even worse, if they're airborne. So it's just like, when you're watching this, you're just like, I really want them to make sure that they stop this, you know before it happens. And then we kind of go to the scene where they're on the plane and everybody's sitting down, and that one dude is in the overhead compartment. Now, usually you have some idiot who's usually doing that. It's like, oh man, I forgot this, I forgot this. And the stewardess is like, sir, I'm gonna need you to sit down. And without hesitation, boom, he just puts one bullet in right in her forehead, and you already know this is to have it start, that violently. But hijackings that I read about in the past, that could happen. Because at first I was like, wait a minute, how the heck did he get a firearm on the plane? Then I realized that's not a plane that's in the US. I believe that was a Turkish flight, right?
Right.
And they
And
were they were in
it's
Turkey, right? Or where were
and
they?
it's a plane that's not even, I don't even think they've taken off yet.
No, they did not. They did not. They were still on the tarmac, and they're trying to get everybody settled and make sure that everybody's seat buckled in, and the flight attendants are doing their last checks to make sure, everybody's there. They didn't even get off. They didn't even get off the ground.
Right. And, it was obviously, that was so incredibly violent, shocking. It was shocking. I didn't know I
Mhm.
was going to see that. And I thought when she asked him to please take his seat and close the overhead compartment, that he would comply. And he was like, yes, I'm sorry. I just needed to get my iPod or something, or whatever, you would be getting at that moment. Right. Um,
Mhm.
and Darth Plato, thank you so much, Darth Plato.
Mhm.
The plane is physically in Germany. It's like a Turkish airline flight, and it has been, while I guess on the tarmac,
Mhm.
hijacked at some point. We don't know every single detail, from the film. Perhaps the book might
Okay.
have a
Cuz
little bit more.
I think, cuz here's the man, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. But this is what happened when I was in Germany. So I don't know if they don't know or if they didn't do it. Okay, so the couple times that I have flown into Frankfurt, Germany, granted, I was on a US flight, so that's a little different. US flights, they isolate you on the tarmac. US flights and Israeli flights. So when you fly in, you land like further out. And then they have like this little, bus that brings you from the tarmac to the main terminal, and you were escorted by German state police. Like, they're uh kind of like National Guard, here. You get escorted to the main terminal. So I don't know how it is with the Turkish Airlines, and the security in Frankfurt is insane. I mean, they actually had to do a chemical test on my curling iron. Literally, literally, when I was checking in on the plane, they waited. They're like, "Well, we have to test it, for all this stuff." They went and tested it. So I'm like, if this was Germany, I'm like, what airport? How could that guy have gotten a firearm packed in his stuff? I could see if someone was bringing, like, say, luggage, or they had like some extraneous guy, show up and bring, firearms that way. But I was just like, that kind of threw me off a little bit, how they were able to do that. So who knows from the book who's on the inside that allowed them to do that. But yeah, I hadn't expected for it to start that way, but a good shouldn't say good, but yeah, but a good hijacking story, you have something that starts that way. If it's anything from, like, say, the pilots get, like, knocked out and they take over, and they take off on the plane, and they realize that it's really not it's not, they find the pilot dead somewhere, the real pilot. Kinda like that.
Yeah, you make such a good point, Lorena. It comes right out of the ballpark with this shocking scene. And, the stewardess, she's just doing her job, and then to get, pretty much killed like that. And for the passengers to see this, it's also terrifying. So that they're in trouble right away. There is no
Mhm.
sort of like, well, things will be fine. No, this one's serious. It's a serious situation. And thank you, Holy Hand Grenades, for saying hello
Thank
and your kind
you.
words. He says,
Yes.
"Wow, sweet overload." Thank you so much, Holy Hand Grenades. We
So
so
sweet of
appreciate that.
you.
Um, and so, I think it's kind of important in the sense of what's established right away. So of course the CIA is going to be handling this.
Mhm.
And Tom, thank you for your kind words as well.
Yes,
Um,
kind.
the beauty from Positive Fandom and Lorena Creole is pure overload. We all love it. It's always fun when Lorena comes on the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We so appreciate it. Um, and, you're right about the level of security they have in Frankfurt. And I myself have flown there a few times with, while I was doing my research overseas,
Mhm.
with things that I needed for my research. And they were very strict on how things could be shipped and handled, and things that
Very.
I had, like in crates packed to go on the trip.
Mhm.
I had to, demonstrate to them, and they're like, well, they knew what everything was, but they actually were kind of curious about me, Lorena. And I said, yes, I'm doing a research study. And, I
Mhm.
said, all right, if we're going this far, I might as well just do my 5 minute spiel
Mhm.
that I've been, been encouraged to do for my research project. And they looked at, I mean, they said, okay, and it's like, yeah,
It's It's funny you should mention that, because I remember as soon as I got off the plane, because it was, like, from Philadelphia to Frankfurt, I think it was like a 9-hour flight. I'm like, "God, I wanna freaking get off this plane." So you get off the plane, and then you're in, immigration, and they look at my passport, they look at me, look at my passport, they look at me, and they're like, "Is this really your name?" My government name. They're like, "Is that real?"
yeah.
I said, "Yes." "I've never heard of this name before." Ever. I'm like, "That's really me." So he calls his buddy over, he's like, "Look at this, look at, I've never seen this before," and I'm just like, "Okay, welcome to international travel, alright." I'm just
Yeah,
like,
they're
"I've
very
never heard that before."
curious. They are very curious, and that's okay. Like we don't fault them for that. We understand that, but
Oh,
not what I was
totally.
expecting. I was like, okay, all right, yeah,
Yeah,
you
they
know.
kinda really wanted to know, as opposed to the
Yes.
UK, it's like, "How long are you staying? Do you have a return plane ticket?" "Yes, I
Next.
do, because your exchange rate is too freaking high."
Oh my goodness. So, you make a good point, and I just love the comments in the chat. Darth Plato has
Mhm.
absolutely been giving us a lot of information about,
Yes, he's
the
right.
yes, about his comment.
Mhm.
German GSG9 does counterterrorism duties. It came out as a result of Munich, which was when they did kidnap, I believe,
Yes.
Israeli um,
Mhm.
athletes at the Munich Games.
Mhm.
And it, did have, I think it did have a tragic ending, but I don't remember all the details, but that was a big deal. And they've made several movies about this, but
Mhm.
they've had to learn how to deal with a situation like that. And thank you so much, Darth Plato, as always, giving
Yes.
us the 411 on
Yes. They
all
sure,
we need to know.
yeah, they sure have, because that I had never had that kind of experience, before, even when departing Frankfurt, how they, like, separated
Mhm.
US and
Yeah.
Israeli departure flights from everyone else, and even the area where you had to wait at, they cleared you out. If you didn't have a ticket, you didn't have a passport, you had to pass passport control, like, twice. You can be there, but yeah. I was actually remembering what happened with Munich when I was there, so yeah.
Well, this particular film, as we've stated before, um, continues on with this branch in Vienna
Mhm,
dealing with this incident and situation, and it really, as Darth Plato says, it was very intense. Once the branch in Vienna find out what's going on, they're really actually very nervous, Lorraine. They're incredibly nervous
ex
and stressed.
absolutely, because, 1, you have all of those innocent people on the plane, so that's 1, and 2, if they're able to get access to their source or not, because between that and the people who hijacked the plane, especially, and forgive me if I'm going ahead a little bit, I think they had found or narrowed down the group to who they figured hijacked the plane, and these were not people to mess with. Like, they will literally, if their demands aren't met, they're going out and taking everyone with them. So they know that this is the level of terrorists that they're dealing with. So you're right, they're very much so on edge, because it's almost someone they're not sure they're really going to be able to negotiate with at all. And the fact of losing all of these innocent people possibly, weighed extremely, extremely heavy on them. And heavy on us as the as the audience watching this, because it's not, some bumbling wannabe terrorists who are like, yeah, give me a couple of tickets to go someplace with no extradition laws and I'll just let everyone else go. It's just like, no, this group is serious. Very, very, very serious.
They really are. I mean, at some point during the film, one of the main characters mentions that they're almost, these guys are willing to be martyrs for the cause.
Yes.
And what that means, in this particular case, is that they don't actually negotiate. They present their terms, expect them to be met, and if they're not, they're willing to die for the cause, without hesitation. And that's
Hmm.
another concern because as the incident arises and continues to escalate, they separate the children from the parents and use them as shields.
Hmm. Oh my
And
God. That.
yeah,
Wow.
it is terrifying. And hello, single songwriter. I hope you are well today.
Oh.
We're doing our spoiler review with Reina Creole today of the film All the Old Knives. Thank you for joining
Hmm.
us. It's wonderful that you are here. And what I really also liked about this film, Lorraine, is that it is kind of told in a bit of a flashback because it turns out that this entire incident, which
Hmm.
unfortunately did not end well,
Right.
has become like something of a point of contention for this particular group. And
Hmm.
even though it was, let's say it occurred in 2012, let's say for all
Hmm.
practical purposes, it's 2022, 10 years
Right.
later, and they're
Hmm.
still talking about it. It's unresolved. And at some point, they feel that it still needs to be further investigated. And so we're kind of brought into a scenario where we see one of the investigators,
Mhm.
whose name, what is his name in the story? Um, his name is Henry. Henry is,
Yes, Chris Pine's character.
yes, I think it's something like Henry Calhoun or something like that. And he
Mhm.
is speaking to Vic, the character played by Lawrence Fishburne, who tells him, I've got to tell you something, Henry. The agency is still not happy with how things worked out. We don't quite know in the beginning how they worked out entirely. We're not given
Right.
all the information right away. But
Mhm.
he does tell us very clearly that they suspect that there was some sort of inside a person or a mole in the agency who
Mhm.
was working with, I guess, the hijackers, and they
Mhm.
need to find out who this was. And Henry's very surprised that they're even pursuing this, because he's like, we went through this so many, for so long.
Mhm.
Why is this coming up? And
Right.
um, Lawrence Fishburne is like, well, I understand what you're saying, but this is hot right now. We have to address this.
Mhm.
We must resolve this. How impressed were you with Lawrence Fishburne, telling, Pine's character, this isn't going to go away, and we need to find out what's going on, and we are going to find out what's going on, and you're going to be the one
Mhm.
who's going to help me.
Mhm.
Even though Chris Pine's character feels like this is finished.
Mhm.
Um, I think that dynamic was very interesting, but I'm also wondering what, Henry is thinking about. Well, now I'm tasked with the person who has to find. Usually it's an outside investigation, right? Lorraine, a special unit that comes and does this sort of thing.
Like, internal affairs, for lack of a better, term, some kinda audit, that comes in for, I guess, however they do it. It's just like, "Hey, we found some kind of irregularity," whatever it is. So they say, "We may have reason to suspect that someone within the agency is responsible for what happened with that plane getting hijacked." And of course, Henry's attitude is, "I thought we closed the books on flight 127." And you're right, because we're the way that we're watching it, we kind of like saw that it was, that the hijacking was going on, but we didn't really see any kind of like resolution. They're just bringing, Lawrence Fishburne's character is bringing it up, and Henry's just like, close the books on 127, and forgive me if I forget, but I think the line back was, no one's really gotten over flight 127. So whatever happened with flight 127 that we aren't aware of, something about it was so heavy that affected those at the Vienna station so much that there's much more going on than we thought that there was. Because we're kind of like Henry, we're just like, I thought that was freaking done. Why are we going back there? It doesn't
And
seem to make
and
sense.
And the twist to all of this, Lorena, and I'm sure you were also quite surprised by this. I know I was, is that not only is Henry tasked with trying to find out who could have been responsible. This is an
Mhm.
alleged theory now. We don't know for sure what's going on, but they think
Right.
there may have been, some sort of insider on this. But Henry has to go and interview someone who he's had an intimate relationship with and who is also on the team.
Yes.
The character, his name is Celia, played by
Mhm.
Thandie Newton. And
Mhm.
can you imagine what would be going through your mind if you knew you had to interview your former lover about something like this?
You already know, number 1, there's a conflict of interest. I
Absolutely.
I don't care how professional you are. There's a conflict of interest with that, where it's just like, am I going to be able to be as effective as an investigator? And wow. I mean, my question would be, of all people, Given that you know about this relationship, why are you sending me? That would be my question,
Yeah,
to ask.
and then they do these lovely scenes of them essentially making love, like it's very tender and loving, and there's no like, it's a beautiful love scene between Thandie Newton and Chris
Mhm.
Pine, a really tender loving moments that you're seeing, and you're
Mhm.
realizing that what this essentially is could essentially be like almost a betrayal if you had to question someone or ask someone a question about something they thought had already
Mhm.
been resolved. And then not
Right.
only that, Lorena, the additional shocker is that Henry is asked to deal with this sort of like by any means necessary if he finds out
Mhm.
that she may be the responsible party in this. And my jaw nearly dropped to the ground when I heard that. I couldn't eat. I'm still shocked at hearing that.
When I heard that, it was just like, okay, so not only do you want to investigate his former bae, but if it turns out that she's the one that betrayed the agency, basically, you're going to have to be the one to put a bullet in her head
It's the
or take care of the
sickest.
problem, so to speak. And it's just like, and in a way, that's genius because how many like intrigue or spy novels have you read or movies have you seen where it turns out that these two people who got together and you think that they're in love with each other and it turns out one betrays the other and it's just like I can't let you live. And that gave me flashbacks, to two films, like that because that's one of the most effective plot devices. People who are, who build this kind of relationship, whether it's by necessity, whether it's, I was sent to kill you, but somehow I want to fall in love with you, but I still got to kill you. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it. Kind of thing. It's like it's a genius plot device and just like ratchets up the tension where you're just thinking, oh my God, he may have to kill her. But why?
This is high level, high intensity,
Mhm.
highly emotionally invested. Feelings are
Mhm.
still there because that flashback they showed you of the two of them making love, you just knew that I almost get the sense from that flashback that he still has feelings for this woman.
Yeah,
And
it was obvious, especially with the flashback that you saw. I mean, it wasn't like a 2 a.m. booty call. Okay. It
no,
wasn't. It was obvious how long that they've been together, with each other, extremely, affectionate with each other. Wasn't You could tell it was some kind of definitely a long-term um relationship. So when he immediately flashes back to that particular moment, and it's like, you mean to tell me with all of that, the fact that his mind flashed back to that tells you he'll do his job, but it's not gonna be easy. It's easy to knock someone off that you don't freaking care about. But the fact that he may be forced to do that for somebody that he's obviously romantically attached to. Mm. Hey, Big Dog Pound.
Hey, McDuck Pound One. Thank you so much for stopping by. He says,
Mhm.
Positive Fandom single songwriter and Lorena Creole. Just stopping by to show you guys some support.
Oh,
Happy holidays,
thank
ladies and
you.
gentlemen. Thank you so much, Big Duck Pound
Yes.
One. We so appreciate it. And Lorena, you are so right about this. I like there's even another scene like right before he's about to do this, he's sitting on his bed alone with like a bag on his shoulder. And of
Mhm.
course, as he's sitting on that bed, he's thinking about, those intimate moments with this woman. And you almost like wonder, oh my God, what is going to happen when they see each other? That was something that I really was very intrigued by,
Mhm.
because I thought, are they going to rekindle this romance? Are they going to make love again? Like, what's going to happen? And throughout this film, there
Mhm.
are flashbacks, and it goes back and forth. As Darth Plato said in his comments, he says, I don't normally like time jumping in movies, but this movie did it effectively. And they did do quite a
Agreed.
job of showing us what happened, because there was quite a bit of jumping around, but it almost had to do this because we weren't given the full story in the beginning. We had to get that and find that out as the story revealed itself. So
Exactly, and it's kind of like how I use, the Book of Boba Fett as a not so great example. When you're using flashbacks, it needs to be able to advance the plot in a way that doesn't lose you, but gives information that you need in the audience in order to fill in a couple blanks just enough to keep the plot moving forward. Reacher did that very well. This movie did it extremely well.
I absolutely agree on all of those points. And so, poor Henry, yes, it's Henry, has to go and see Celia
Mhm,
where she's living now. She is, they're no longer together, obviously, because, he's seeing a woman that he did care for very
mhm,
much intimately. And
mhm,
now he's going to see her. She now lives in California. Beautiful place, Lorena,
mhm,
in Carmel, California.
mhm.
Um, and he has to meet with her to ask her about this very serious situation. And,
Right.
I have to say that, as he's driving along the coast,
Mhm.
and seeing all this beautiful
It's
countryside.
gorgeous.
It's so nice. He arrives at this restaurant, and that is a stunning, stunning place. Deep in wine country, as they said. He
Mhm.
asked for, like a hard drink, because you would need a drink. You needed an adult beverage going into this one.
Oh, yeah, for this kinda conversation, most definitely.
And he finds out that they only have wine. And, of course, he is at the bar, and he
Mhm,
sees Thandie Newton's character, Celia, for the
mhm,
first time in quite some time. And I'm guessing, Lorena, probably not since that incident in, so many years ago. So it's been
mhm,
some time since they've seen each other. And
mhm,
immediately as they see each other, he also has these flashback moments thinking of the intimate times that they were together. Very, very tender, dignified scenes that we see of them making love. It's really, really good. I think it was beautifully done. And of course, he's
mhm,
going to be thinking about that. She looks just as wonderful as ever. She's happy to see him. What do you think's
mhm.
going through her mind, Lorena?
One, probably they haven't seen each other in quite, in quite some time. Um, Probably having the same kind of flashbacks that he is about them together and, like, intimate encounters that they would have had. It's just like if you have that kind of formal relationship with somebody, you haven't seen them in a while, of course, you're gonna be replaying that, kind of in your mind, but also kind of like, after all this time, why do you wanna see me? It's kind of like in season 2 of Bridgerton, where, Martina's ex-fiancé decides, I think I'll go look her up and drop in and see her," and it's kind of just like, "Okay, why are you here?" What is it that, that you're curious, that you're curious about? And with Celia, it's kind of like, "I haven't seen you in a long time. Why are you coming to see me? What is it that you could possibly want?" It's like, is there something, do you wanna find out why we're no longer together, why I left you, even though that was years ago? I'm guessing at least about 10 years ago, given the ages of her children. That's kinda like the idea that I got. But that would be number 1. I'm thinking, why are you what is it that you wanna see me about? It's kind of like when your ex that you broke up with, and it
Yeah.
may not have been not like the worst terms, but you still kind of worry that they're okay. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm in town. Want to get together. It's kind of like, why? What do you want?
Yeah, you make a good point. I do love the Bridgerton season 2 reference. It is exactly like that. And, of course, in the story, it turns out that, they did break up. They're no longer together. As we
Hmm.
mentioned, she's now married and has 2 children,
Hmm.
and is in beautiful Carmel, California. And it's funny that, I think I would be thinking the same thing if I were her, because once Henry informs her why he's there, she
Hmm.
says, she's actually kind of surprised, because she says something like, I thought you were here to see if we had that old spark. And I thought to myself, yeah, because they were in, very intimate and in love. Like, it looked like a
Hmm.
serious relationship between these two.
Very.
So, everybody is wondering, at least I'm wondering, and I'm sure you were wondering, a lot of people watching this film, why aren't they still together? What happened? So it kind of like brings up even more questions about this film and how fascinating the story is. And so,
Hmm.
at some point, after he divulges that he's there to say that he's there to further the investigation, he wants to
Hmm.
hear things from her point of view as well. Just to find out more about this, but he doesn't necessarily tell her that she's a suspect, right, Lorena? He's not. He's a little tactful, but it's
Hmm.
clear that she's being questioned by him, and it does have a sense of awkwardness to it.
Very. It's kind of just like, okay, well, number one, you're not here to see me to tie up some kind of romantic loose ends. You're here to ask me, you're here to talk shop. And it's like, I don't work in that shop anymore because Celia's not, she's not with the CIA anymore. So it's kind of just like, why are you asking me questions, former shop questions? You could have just called me on the phone and did this. Why are you doing this? Obviously at a very romantic restaurant. It's not like it's an Olive Garden or anything, like that. So and you're right, it's extremely awkward. It's just like, I'm thinking that you're here to see me and reminisce about old times, but you want to know what happened with something work wise, and not just anything, something that was a very, very bad situation in how things went down.
Yeah, and I suspect, and we kind of have learned that she left after this incident occurred. She left the agency after this occurred.
Mhm.
Clearly, she, I'm guessing that the incident might have been one of the reasons why she left the agency. This couldn't have been a very positive experience for everybody there at the time. And you and
Right.
I have had dinners like this with people where you're kind of like going through this, but it does kind of seem like Henry wants a little bit more from her. And so, this is just very different, and it's very unusual set against this beautiful setting. You can see this gorgeous sunset on the side of the restaurant, which is
Mhm.
almost empty. There's hardly anybody there, and it's just
Yeah.
so lovely. They're in this glow and light of a sunset that is
Mhm.
absolutely spectacular. But this moment is not absolutely spectacular, is it?
No, it's almost like, trying to figure out how to picture it. It's like it's so beautiful, but you can't enjoy the beauty of it because there's this awkward situation that you're trying to make you know, heads or tails with. So it's like you can't really pay attention to the beautiful, atmosphere, because you can see the sunset and see how things are lit and, see how beautiful the restaurant is, but you can't really focus on it, you know. Like, even when they eventually bring the food to them and the waitress is like saying what's in it, I wasn't paying attention to it. Just kind of like, yeah, okay, done, go away. What the heck else do you want to talk about? I don't even really want to eat this right now.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting that it had that effect on the observers, as we're watching this. And even as, the sun is setting over Carmel and,
Mhm.
Henry asks her to give details about, your why you were there and the incident and everything. And she says, she tells him very clearly, I was living the dream. It was at the perfect location. I had a
Mhm.
great job, the boss, and she very clearly says, and I had you, and he says, and then you left. And
Mhm.
so I got the impression that it was very abrupt departure for her. And
Mhm.
something else has happened that we don't know about. And I also think that what's very interesting about this is, this is an intelligence agency. Why on
Mhm.
earth doesn't he know why she left, which I'm assuming was around the time that, let's say, maybe that might have been around the time that their relationship ended. So there's kind
Mhm.
of unfinished business between them as well.
Very much so. Especially again, given how intimate the two of them were with each other. It wasn't like a one night stand. It was obvious with some kind of ongoing relationship and obvious that they were in love with each other. So it's like, what is it that happened that was so bad or affected her in such a way that she up and left? So you're kind of thinking, what could possibly happen when she's just like, I quit, I can't be here anymore. I just I just need to be gone, and didn't tell him. And 10 years have possibly passed. And the way that he says it is like, and then you left. Like it was obvious her leaving affected him
Mhm.
that way. Of course, I'm thinking, well, why the frick didn't you go and find her? That was just me, but hey, I'm not writing a story. Um, but it was obvious that it really hurt him. I mean, I'm thinking about something like, say, it's almost like finding out, okay, I've been dating this guy and we're together, and I just happen to look through his pockets. I find this phone number. I call this phone number, and it's his wife. Okay, I'm out. I'm gone. It has to be something so bad or so profound that it was just like, I can't be with you,
Mhm.
anymore.
And we're going to definitely touch on this. Hello, awesome one. Thank you so much for checking
Hey
in.
there.
And Darth Plato says, I just assumed that she left was because it reminded her of the awful events that does happen in real life. And you make a good point, Darth Plato. And of
Mhm.
course, this is a spoiler review, so we're definitely going to talk about what
Yes.
happened exactly. But
Mhm.
what I think is very interesting was that it's kind of at this point that we learned that both Celia and Henry have
Mhm.
contacts, sources
Mhm.
that give them information that they were hoping would aid them in finding out what's going on with these hijackers and
Mhm.
hopefully to I guess thwart the hijackers and save the
Right.
passengers.
Right.
And just as I could be wrong in the time sequence of this,
Mhm.
just as Celia goes out to an informant, tries to find out something she does, and she comes back.
Mhm.
We find out more about an informant that Henry knows, who we thought might have been dead, turns out could possibly be connected to the hijacking, and that there's an agent with the CIA who's actually on this hijacked plane. My goodness, Lorena, this is a
Mhm.
crazy situation.
Absolutely, absolutely nuts when it turns out that they've actually got an asset on that same plane. And it's kind of like, how exactly, did that wind up happening? So they have one of their own involved. So it brings up a whole another batch of questions. Why is one of our people, you know, on that plane?
And so, and as I am advancing the story a little bit faster than when you're going to be watching it in the film, but um, incidentally, in order to aid, this process, Celia decides that she's going to go and see one of the ladies from the Muslim Women's Foundation. This kind of makes
Mhm.
sense. Of course, she would go out to see if she could find out, what these hijackers want and how she can aid in stopping this whole thing. So she goes out
Mhm.
and she meets a woman, and incidentally,
Mhm.
at this particular point in the film, it's a woman who we see earlier, just a few minutes actually prior to this, that Henry
Mhm.
was speaking to. So I found
Mhm.
that very interesting, and I was a little confused by this, but soon, I realized why I was confused by it. Nevertheless, I really got scared when they took Celia's phone from her, and they said, you have to give me the phone. And I was like, oh my gosh, if she gives them the phone, well, like, is she ever going to make it out of there? And
Mhm.
it was terrifying, but then nothing happens. And she goes back to the office, and, they're like, well, did you find out anything? She says, no, I didn't find out anything. And
Mhm.
Henry's incredibly glad to see her in the office at that very moment. He sees her there.
Mhm.
She's safe.
Right.
And, um, so I thought that that was kind of a very interesting moment, and actually is a very critical point in the movie. One of the
Mhm.
other men who works in their office, a very nice guy, and Celia's mentor, Bill,
Mhm.
they looking at phone records, and they find that some of the phone records and calls made from his phone is very similar, or a similar area code to that of the hijackers.
Right. Right. The phone number was from Tehran.
And
Mhm.
incidentally, although the phone, everybody in the office has access to it. When
Mhm.
confronted earlier by Henry, Bill says, "I didn't have anything to do with this, so this is enough, and you're
Mhm.
barking up the wrong tree."
Right.
Now, um, what I also think is very interesting is that after and as I said, everybody, it does jump around a little bit. Bill asks Henry if there's any way you can contact that informant from Russia. We think he's involved in this.
Mhm.
And Henry says, I can't. And Henry is actually very upset because he had to name this informant and give them up to the Russian government, and which would essentially mean that this informant would be killed for as a
Right.
traitor to Russia.
Mhm.
And when Bill finds this out, and everybody's kind of shocked because they thought that Henry had kind of messed up in Russia, and he says it's not the case. I was kind of forced into doing this. And hello, BK Panther, thank you so much for stopping
Hello.
by. We so appreciate that. Um, Henry intimates to Celia, and he's actually very shaken. And he tells her, that she's the only thing he cares about, and he only wants to be responsible for her. And this is like one of the most caring, loving moments, Lorena, in this film. I have to give Chris Pine so much credit for this, because I'm absolutely 100% convinced that he loves Sandy Newton. And I thought it was just such a tender moment. He says that he can't lose this, and that he
Mhm.
loves her, and he tells her, he's like, do you love me? And she's like, yeah, of course I love you. Of course, you're an
Mhm.
incredible man. And honestly, what made me think of what's so interesting about this is there's such a romantic moment. And I had to wonder what happened to this couple, Lorena. What happened that would cause
Mhm.
this whole thing to break down between them? And so,
Mhm.
um, you know, we get further into the story to find out that there's a little bit more to what we saw than meets the eye. As the
Mhm.
situation escalates, they thought, Ahmed, who was the person on the plane who worked for the CIA, said that there's a
Mhm.
possibility you guys can go through the bottom of the plane. It was very complicated, the ring, incredibly complicated
Mhm.
mission. It's probably, these special, uh, those SOCOM guys who would do something like this, right? They come in and like go into the plane, no one would hear
Yeah.
them.
They're
Like,
like, "Go the undercarriage," no one's gonna be looking there, and that's how you
yeah,
can.
one of these
Mhm.
well-trained, SEAL, whatever these operators would be doing to get in this plane undetected,
Mhm.
possibly get in there, possibly be able to save some of the passengers. And
Right.
so what happens is, unfortunately, right as this situation is presented,
Mhm.
we see a situation where all of a sudden the same informant, or sorry, CIA agent who's on the plane says,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you can't do that plan anymore. It's not going to work.
Mhm.
Call it off. And everybody's quite stunned by this. What has changed, from one moment to the next? And then, of course, the passengers, they actually use sarin gas when the prisoners are not released, as their demands are met, and
Mhm.
all the passengers are killed on the plane. And so that's how this thing happened. It's incredibly complicated, but just even sort of like the machinations of what they witnessed feel very unusual and feel very contrived, don't they?
Mhm. Very, very much so. Um, very much so. I was thinking with the sarin gas, and I think they had actually mentioned this further on in the film, that they said that was akin to the same situation that had happened in Russia. And I don't know if you saw the movie Tenet or
Yes,
not. You see
yes.
the movie Tenet when they're in the opera house and then all of a sudden people just start passing out and they'd actually pump the whole thing full of gas. That just gave me flashbacks when I was looking at that. But yeah, but that was like extremely contrived. It's like why can it not work? That was the plan. Now all of a sudden your guy who's supposed to be working for you is telling you, no, that's not gonna work. And the
Yeah, and
next thing is everybody's dead.
it's shocking, and it looked like they were going to do something. Now all of a sudden they weren't going to do something. And as a result of this, they're kind of trying to figure out, they're confused themselves. This was not the way things were supposed to go down. And you know uh, after this devastating situation, Celia happens to be with Henry, and
Mhm.
this whole thing has been so tragic, but she ends up leaving him. And so we get to it kind of like a turning point in the film, where they are at the dinner table. Now the sun is almost set, and I find it
Mhm.
very interesting that, like the way that they timed this.
Right.
The sun is pretty much set,
Mhm.
and Henry asks her, the $64,000 question, of,
Mhm.
because he's still in the dark after 10 years. And Tom Jr. Jackson, BK Panther says that, and I do actually have to, I just wanted to say their comments before I say this. Chris Pine with a beard reminds me of a young George Clooney. Certainly he does. He looks quite
Hmm.
distinguished,
Very.
doesn't he?
The gray in his beard, it looks very distinguished on him.
Very distinguished. And to see him at a state where he is actually asking her, because I think I probably would have, this would have driven me crazy not knowing.
Mhm.
He tells her, why? Why did you
Why'd you
end
do it?
our relationship
Mhm.
this way? And the answer that she gave was also a shocking answer. She
Mhm.
says that she, while they were together, and we actually see this in the
Mhm.
film, that he received a call on his phone, and she happened to see it, and that phone call was also from, the same Iranian number that was found in the station logs.
Mhm.
And that was kind of a critical point. Honestly, Lorena, I think that my jaw just dropped to the ground. This isn't good at all.
Not at all, at all. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris Pine's dad was on Chips?
Yes.
Who was his dad?
Tom, can you please look up and tell us who his dad was
I
on?
have to find that out because I used to watch Chips
I
religiously
watched it
in
too.
in syndication.
Do 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 do.
I
Do,
love
do,
that.
do, do, do. I
Eric
love.
Estrada's character,
Oh hell
he would pull women over to get their phone number and get
yeah.
slapped. I freaking love that.
He
Oh,
was
man.
wonderful.
I
Eric
love
Estrada
that.
was,
Oh my god, I
uh
freaking loved him.
oh,
Absolutely,
his
absolutely
father
loved
was the
him.
sergeant. Yeah, well, he looks like him then. The sergeant, their
Oh,
boss,
okay.
he kinda
I'm gonna
looks
have to
like
go
him.
back and watch that. I love that show. I love Ships. I
Yeah, it
love
was
Ships.
great. Gosh,
Oh,
yeah.
I just remember seeing that when that number came up,
Oh,
on his phone,
yeah,
my heart sank
yeah.
because it's just like, it's like being in her position. It's just like, think somebody that you love, somebody that you trust. Turns out that he could actually be somehow involved with that. It's like you can see it, you don't have all the pieces, but it's like how if you stay, you're basically gonna out him because people are gonna ask you questions and you're just gonna be like, they're gonna want me to be truthful and I can't do this. And for whatever reason, she probably thought she could not handle that if it's a choice between trying to figure out what's going on or the person that you love is responsible for killing all of those people on that airplane. It's just like how to wrap your head around that, someone that you're supposed to trust. Because again, to kind of get to the intelligence community or like CIA or whatever, certain people have certain security clearances. Certain people can only talk to certain people. So there's a small group of people that you share this type of information, you know, with only people that you can discuss that because it's not like they can go home to their significant other that they don't work with and tell them what happened on for this plane, what went down, all the intel behind it that happened. You can't talk about it. So the fact that they could talk about it with each other, but he hid this from her, that's a profound it's a betrayal on a lot of levels. Betrayal as a coworker in addition to betrayal with someone that you're in a romantic relationship with too. So it's just, oh, that hurt to see. I my heart just sank when I saw that number. And here's the thing. I knew that was the number before they flashed back and showed you where she's going through the phone logs and she's circling. I'm like, ah, shoot. I was hoping it was going to be error. Like, oh, wait, no, it was a one off. But no, that was it.
Yeah, it was clearly in his phone. Why did he not delete it? Well, actually, it rang while he was in the
Mm-hmm.
shower. That's what it was. He could have blocked the call. He could have done a lot of things. Turned his phone off. Guys,
Mm-hmm.
turn your phones off. No.
Could have
This.
turned that off. He could have masked the phone number if it came
Mhm,
in.
mhm.
Um, but he didn't. For whatever
Dead.
reason, he didn't.
No, he didn't. Dad man walking 55. Good
Hello
evening to you.
there.
Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
We so appreciate it. And
Mm-hmm.
um, Acid for Blood. Acid for Blood. Hi,
Oh,
ladies.
hello.
Just watched this movie last night, Acid for
Mm,
Blood. Yes, so glad you watched it. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we have.
yes.
Oh, and he says that the ending was heartbreaking. And we are definitely going to get to that
Woo.
actually right now. If this phone number, Lorena,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't enough of a betrayal, if this wasn't enough to make you like, I would be like, oh my god, your first instinct would be to kind of like run away from this.
Mm-hmm.
She can't stay with the agency, like you said. She will reveal by the look on her face what has
Mm-hmm.
happened. She has to get out of there. She just can't, be around. Oh, and Dad Man Walking wants to let us know. Really sorry I missed the Reacher finale with you ladies. Always good just to listen in.
Oh, well, thank you. You can watch the replay. I know
Mhm.
it's not the same as watching it live. We love seeing it there live too.
Absolutely. So you can still catch it. And, if this wasn't if this thing wasn't enough to shock her and us, because this is a lot weighing on our shoulders,
Mhm.
she has to leave right away. And,
Mhm.
this was really something that, when it tells him about the call, and, she realizes that essentially, he is the leak, and also, um, that she did it to protect him more or less, didn't she, Lorena?
Very much so, that's exactly why she did. It's kind of like if it was some coworker that just a coworker that you worked with, it's like, "Oh, no, you're making all of us look bad. This is what you're responsible for, killing these people. Oh, yeah, we're gonna string you up." There's no romantic affection there. But with her, it's just like they're gonna ask me, and I gotta be truthful, and that's not gonna work. Yes, Darth Plato, absolutely. I do realize that.
Yes.
Totally realize that by not doing it. So that's why she just up and quit. She's not
Yeah.
obligated once she quit. She's not obligated to do that.
That's right. So
Mhm.
she couldn't stay with the CIA after that. Her career was pretty
Mm-mm.
much over, either way, because it would have been very difficult for her to explain her relationship with him even after the fact. Well, how close are you two? And
Mhm.
then, she could be implicated in this. This is more than just,
Very.
his career at this point. So she
Mhm.
did leave to protect him, but at the same time, that's kind of a lot to handle for any one person anyway. And considering how deep she was in this relationship, how much she loved this man, she loved him enough to let him go so that this wouldn't be something that could ever come up, that she could ever sort of be the person that brings
Mhm.
this to anyone's attention.
Mhm.
But um she admits that after realizing that he was the leak and deciding not to divulge it to the CIA,
Mhm.
that after he contacted her, she contacted the agency and arranged this meeting place and the staff
Mhm.
and fake customers with the aim of poisoning him, more or less.
Yeah, they basically did a cleaning operation, you know.
Yeah.
And when Celia talks to who was it? Was it Carl? Whoever she was talking to, and she's like, just leave my family alone. Just basically do it, you know, get it done, because it's just like it's so, how to put it? It's kind of like she can't really run away anymore. It's
No.
not like it's just her, because when they were together, it was just her. Now it's no longer just her. She has a family. She has a husband. She has young children. So it's kind of like she can't run away from that duty anymore, because she does not have that romantic tie to him. At least, when he contacted her, it's like, I don't have that romantic tie to him. That's where all this started to happen. But there's a difference between setting all this stuff up and then her walking into the restaurant and actually seeing him. And those memories come back. And you start to remember what they look like. She's remembering what he smells like. She's remembering what he feels like. And all of that, you can see it in her face the more they start to talk. And when you find out, when Carl's like, "Don't touch his wine glass," basically. Don't
Hmm.
touch his wine glass. We'll have it all handled." And
Yes.
she's like, "Well, how do I know you're not gonna contact me, that it's gonna be done and I'm out of this?" He's like, he tells her basically what's gonna happen. Independent source to be verified or whatever. And he's like, "You have my word." She said, "Man, F your word." Because it's obvious she doesn't want to do it.
No, she doesn't. And you're right,
Mm-mm.
Lorena, she's forced into this. She has no choice. This is probably part of a plea deal.
Mhm.
And she has to do this last operation to save her family,
Mhm.
essentially kill a man that she probably still cares a lot about. She still loves this guy. You know, we saw some scenes where she's kind of like stroking his face and
Mhm.
you know, all those moments together. You know, she hasn't forgotten any of that. You
None
know,
of it.
those scenes are things that she remembers, as well as him remembering those intimate moments.
Mhm.
And that's why as Henry is dying after having drank this poison in the cup, this felt like a almost, it's not Romeo and Juliet, but it felt like a Romeo and Juliet moment, because here he is like in his dying state, and it's so sad,
It
because you know, to see him fall this way, it was actually very painful to watch this, you
very, you
know.
see, like, blood coming from his nose, and it's just like, "Oh my
I
god."
hated seeing that. um you know, she says, you know, why did you do it? Like,
Mhm.
why did you do this thing? And he says, this was the part that really just, oh my gosh, it blew my mind away. He explains to her that while she was um, off meeting with the Muslim Women's Association or something like that,
Mhm.
one of the men, this man, Ilya, who was the informant,
Mhm.
had become a terrorist. And during this point, he manipulated this outing that Celia had. Celia thought she was going to see a woman in the women's Muslim,
Mhm.
you know, group, but that's not who she was going to see. She was going to see essentially these terrorists, and they
Mhm.
made sure that she stayed there and called poor Henry and said, "Look, if you don't give us this information, Celia is not going to come back."
Mhm.
And I think that that was really, you know, the downfall for Henry. This almost feels like a tragedy, like some kind of a tragedy in the sense, like a Greek tragedy in a way, because
Mhm.
he almost has no choice but to betray the agency in order to save the woman that he loves. And that was really just, you know, by him saying, "Oh, we have an agent on the plane," and you know, we
Mhm.
they planned on assaulting under the carriage of the plane. And it's at that moment that the hijackers realize that they cannot trust the CIA because they've gotten this inside information. After all, Celia was going there to find out information to help people get off the plane.
Mhm.
And the whole thing gets reversed when he tells them not only that they have an agent on board, but that they were planning to attack. And of course, at
Mhm.
that point, that's when the hijackers decided to just release the sarin gas and kill everyone, because I think guy even says this has to do with respect and power or whatever. And they
Mhm.
realized that they couldn't trust it. Of course, they could not trust the CIA. The CIA is going to do everything that they can to save everyone. But that was kind of like the thing that pushed it over the edge. And honestly, I just can't even, I think when, you know, I think we both know poor Celia's, you know, heart must be incredibly broken at this point, because
Mhm.
she kind of thought she knew all the facts 10 years ago, and she didn't know anything that was going on.
Mm-mm.
I mean, this really was one of the most profound things I've ever seen, to see him dying like that.
To see him die and to realize that he's dying ultimately because he was trying to protect her, because he loved her. And she thought for all these many years, I can't believe why would he do something, um, you know, like that? Why would he do that? We were together, we were in love, I had a great job, I was making a difference, and then because of something you did and I couldn't give you up like that, my life basically went to pieces. It's all your fault. Why did you do it? And when he tells her, it's because I loved you. I love you. And here's the situation why. And then we see like those pieces that we didn't see before. And what it boiled down to was basically they got to him through her. It's kind of like how when there's mob hits that happen. It's like they're not coming after you, they're going to come after somebody that you love instead and manipulate that way. If you don't do what we want you to do, guess what? Your wife or your kid or whoever is going to meet into a very, very unfortunate accident if you don't do that. So they find out how to manipulate them that way. And he's kind of just like, I can't let that, happen. And then it weighs on him that these people die because he didn't want Celia to die. And it's a horrible situation. And for me, I'm kind of like, how did they get that particular information to know that he could be manipulated that way?
I think that they got the information from Ilya. Earlier in the
Mm,
film, we saw that Ilya had become very close to the Henry character as he became an informant for Henry. But in
mhm,
actuality, Ilya was, I think, a terrorist at the time. I think that Henry didn't know. And so when Ilya
mm,
suddenly disappears, it looks like he's out of the picture. He's no longer involved in this, but he was
mhm,
involved the whole time. And so when he suddenly comes back into the picture,
mhm,
you know, it shocks Henry. He can't believe that he's seeing Ilya, but then he
mhm,
also realizes that he's told Ilya a lot of personal information about himself. And that personal information was used against him, which
mhm.
includes Celia's, and his relationship.
Exactly.
So it really was, just as far as I'm concerned, just an incredible story. But boy,
Mhm.
is Celia even in not in trouble, but in danger now? She's in this place there. They're going to be watching her probably for the rest of her life, right, Lorena?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
I think that she's not out of the woods necessarily, and that she has to
Mhm,
be fearful for her children. This is really something that I think um, is quite alarming in a sense, because in the beginning they talked about Ilya, or they might have mentioned him as an informant or being alive or whatever it was, and how he was
mhm,
no longer alive. But I have a feeling he's probably in custody, and he's told the story, and they know Celia's situation too. I think that the
mhm,
CIA kind of knows it, kind of on the back end, but they didn't go ahead and disclose that they knew it to Celia or to Henry. And
mhm.
so, which would be something I'd want to ask the author of the book, but I don't know whether it's the most important thing. What do you think, Lorraine? Do you think the CIA knew all along?
I'm gonna say yes. And actually gonna answer Darth Plato here. Exploiting an agent's vulnerability is common in intelligence work. Yes, it is. You have to be extremely vigilant who you talk to. Any kind of uh, relationships that you have, you got to divulge that, especially if it's relationships between agents. That's definitely something that you have to divulge, because once certain people know that's it, that's your business. Like, for example, when I worked in intelligence, I could not divulge hardly anything of what I did. I was just like, I just work in intelligence solutions, and I leave it like that. I don't know. It's like you never know. Someone could come up and question me. It could just be, casual conversation. Hey, how you doing? What kind of work do you do? Blah, blah, blah. You don't know who's trying to extract information for you and when from you. And when I was overseas, definitely I did not talk to people unless I had to. There's like certain people, that you would have to, talk to. Like, I had a cab driver who, as soon as he found out that I was American, started asking a lot of personal questions. And then he was asking me about stuff going on in the Middle East. I was like, pray for peace. And then I tipped him like £5.
Wow.
That was pretty much it,
Yeah.
because people will try to extract information for you and from you. And even being in intelligence, almost like when there's an inner office romance, you got to disclose that to HR. it's kind of like the same thing. So I think the CIA definitely knew about that. It didn't look like it was something that they were hiding, when you
No,
saw
no,
them
no, no.
interacting together. So
Yeah.
one, they had to disclose what that was, and two they knew. Two they knew because three, that's why Celia had to quit. Because if she didn't, and they come around investigating and talking to her and, picking her brain and shaking her down for everything that happened. So long as she was an agent, they could question her. When she's no longer an agent, the only thing that she's obligated to do is not divulge any state secrets, but anything about a former person, no, no, unless they serve her with a subpoena. But it didn't look like that was something that they wanted to do.
Yeah, I have a feeling that she's going to maintain her connection, although she's not happy about it. She's not happy about this, but it's something that she has to just keep quiet pretty much for the rest of her life, just so that her family can stay safe. Maybe they don't even
Hmm.
know she worked for the CIA at some point, which might be a
Hmm.
good thing to keep that away from her family. No
Hmm.
one really needs to know this.
Mm-mm.
Darth Plato says Alfred Reddle was a well known case.
Who was he?
No.
Um,
No.
Let
Let's
me
see.
Google who this is. Alfred Riddle.
An American military officer who rose to head the
Uh-huh.
Evidence Bureau, the counterintelligence wing of the General Staff of the Austrian Hungary Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And he was known for radical innovations and the use of
Mm-hmm.
advanced technology to ensnare foreign spies. So he must
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Counterintelligence.
right.
That is a very that's a very real thing. I'll tell you that in intelligence. It's a very real thing. There's a reason they call them spooks. They're like
Right.
ghosts. I mean, I would get asked about what I do. I'm like, nah, I just work intelligence. And I leave it like that. Even my family was like, you can't talk about it. I said, no, no, I can't talk about it. That's the only thing that I can tell you. And they, if you're a spouse, even the spouses of people in intelligence, yeah, they keep tabs on them too. There are no secrets there.
Wow. Well, Darth Plato says all the old knives part two. That would be very interesting to
That
see.
that would be if they do it right. If they do it right. I don't know if the author wrote a second book in relation to that. I'm not quite sure, but if they did, they would have to kind of do it the right way because this kept us guessing. We were, the questions that we had, we were invested in finding out what happened. We wanted to know, why all of a sudden they broke up. We wanted to know what was up with Henry. Why is he doing that? Why is he questioning, everything? And just what is it that he did that just broke Celia down so much, and basically finding out, okay, now that he's back, what's going to happen to him? You know?
Exactly. And Acid for Blood says the movie had a stellar cast. It certainly did.
It really did.
Um, yes, I have to say. And Darth Plato says Alfred Riddle was in a same sex relationship and they were going to expose him for that. And
Mhm.
that forced him to spy for them or else be exposed. So that's exactly the
Mhm.
scenario you presented, Lorraine, is something that he did not want to be exposed or told about.
Mhm.
And I have to say, this film at the end of this really was not the feeling that I got at the end of it. I don't know how I quite feel about it. I mean, I almost feel like I kind of wish things had worked out differently for both of them. but
Mhm.
it was something at that particular moment that happened that, you know, I don't know whether one could say that it was completely avoidable. He was vulnerable, and this is something that was unfortunate that happened, but I think it's a very tragic kind of story, but also a very good story.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. How can I put this? Very tragic, very Romeo and Juliet kind of esque,
Yeah.
kind of way. We think that it's due to avarice that Henry does what he does, and it turns out that no, that's not really the case. He, you know, protects her because he loves her, and in the end, you know, he winds up dying for it. He's the one who winds up paying for that. And it's like she doesn't want that to the fact that the answer is that simple. It's not, he was in it for himself or some kind of radical cause or something like that. That was selfless. Him saying, I did it because I loved you. I couldn't. We know who these people are. We know they're like martyr level. They will not think twice about killing you. So that was the sacrifice that he made and thought that he could kind of get that, swept under the rug, no one to look at it, again, which is why in the beginning when it's just like we thought that was close. Didn't one of the agents involved with that kill himself?
Yes. And I thought that was very interesting as well. One of the
Mhm.
agents at the Vienna bureau killed
Mhm.
himself shortly
Yes.
after the incident. And, you
Mhm.
have to wonder the reason why. Perhaps he also was approached. Um, and,
Yeah.
we may never know about this, but it's something to think about. Perhaps, he had something to do with divulging information that gave the hijackers an advantage over
Mhm.
Henry and Celia. So, this is something else to think about. There may have been more than one mole in the organization in
Right.
that regard. And
Mhm.
so, we're not going to know that, but it's something to think about. And, you know, we just don't have an answer. But
Mhm.
my goodness, Lorena.
It it was such a great story, romantic story wrapped up in a lot of intrigue. How they paced it was amazing. Um, it was really, really, really enjoyable. I definitely enjoyed watching this. I was entertained, it was nice to watch. It was very, very nice to watch.
It was beautiful. I definitely want to visit Carmel, California, because it looks amazing.
Mhm.
And I have to say, Chris Pine was amazing in the film, and so was Sandy Newton. The cast was wonderful. So anybody who's watching this or hasn't seen the film, please go ahead and watch all the old knives. We think you will enjoy it. I know I did. I know Lorena enjoyed it, and we think
Oh,
you
yeah.
will too. Any last words on the film, Lorena?
I'm actually trying to figure out who produced that. So I'm trying to find out what company who did it here. Let's see. Um, no, it just says the director.
Hmm.
Just says who the director is, but I'm just very interested to find out what studio
It
back
says
back this.
Amazon Studios and Eon, Eone.
Hmm.
I never heard of them
Okay.
before.
Eone.
Yeah, Eone.
Let's see who they. Entertainment One Limited.
I
Apparently
think
is an American-owned multinational entertainment company based in Toronto.
mm,
It looks like they acquire distribution and production of films. So looks like a indie production, and Amazon, like you were saying, before, it was in theaters, limited number of theaters, because it does have a very much of an art house, um, kind of feel to it, even though they're very high profile stars, and just that distribution, on Amazon to just, like, elevate the profile. So my last thoughts is it was definitely worth watching. Nice to be able to watch a movie that doesn't insult its audience. I got lost in a couple of parts, but probably because your girl was looking at her phone instead of looking at the looking at the darn movie. Because I'm like, wait, how did he know that particular detail, about his life? But eventually, found out that that's what it is. That is the company that does the Bond films, I think. Really?
no.
Well, that might be why I'm getting certain, like, spy vibes,
Mhm.
with that. So, yeah, this again, great watch. Definitely worth your time. If I had to give it a rating, I would probably give it, like, about a 7.5. It was worth watching. It really was. Good popcorn movie too. Good popcorn movie, good romantic movie, because those scenes were very, very freaking steamy. Yeah.
They were so good.
Yeah.
Chris Pine, man, I
Mm.
Andy Newton, you lucky woman. Chris Pine, you lucky man. I loved those love scenes. Dad man walking 55.
Hey,
Gotta run. I might have to check this one out too. Well, thank you so much for hanging
definitely check it out. I really
with
think,
us.
I think you and the missus would actually enjoy this movie.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, those scenes were very steamy. All new meaning to the spy who loved me. Absolutely, Darth Vader. Whole lot of loving
Mhm.
going on in this one.
Oh,
At
yeah.
least they had that. And I have to say, I did enjoy the film thoroughly as well. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. And the cinematography in that restaurant was worth it. I just love those scenes between the two of them. It
Mhm.
was really very, very nicely done. Chris Pine just keeps impressing me more and more and more. So I
Doesn't he
just,
have another movie, The
yes,
Contractor?
yes,
Oh
yes,
god,
he
I can't wait to
does.
freaking see that
That was
movie.
a fantastic film. A
I can't wait. That's
fantastic.
that's on my list. My list to
You're gonna
watch.
love it. You're gonna love
Mhm.
it. Um, I was gonna say, Lorena, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Instagram. And of course, you can find me on YouTube, all under Lorena Creole. Please do check out my channel here on YouTube. I do live streams, videos, sci fi, pop culture analysis, theme park type of stuff. And I just generally like to have fun, on my channel. So please do check it out. Please do hit the thumbs up button on this stream. And thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you, for having me.
Yes, and thank you for coming onto the channel, Lorena. I always love having you on, and I so do appreciate it. And guys, please do subscribe to Lorena's channel, and also subscribe to Positive Fandom as well here if you have not
Mhm.
already. Just want to thank you all for uh, being with us tonight for this. All the old knives spoiler review. We had so much fun tonight, and we
Yes, we
so
surely
appreciate
did.
you all being here with us. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out.
Mhm.
And, we so appreciate everything.
Thank
And,
you.
oh, Darth Vader has one question about I think it's about the Alfred Dreyfus. It's called the
I've
Dreyfus
tried this.
Affair. Um,
I don't think I've heard of that one before.
I've heard of it, but I don't remember all the details.
Alfred
But it's called the
Dreyfus.
Dreyfus Affair, and it's kind of a famous story Um,
Bet you I've heard of it, but for some reason I don't remember the name.
mhm.
Let's see. Conviction and charges of treason. Accused of passing sensitive artillery
Oh,
information to Germany.
wow, that's involved.
Wow. Hmm. Interesting.
Darth Plato always has very interesting comments, and we so appreciate those comments. Thank you, Darth Plato,
Oh,
for
okay.
adding so much to what we're doing. We love
Mhm.
that. Oh, and he says I was correct, that it is called the Dreyfus Affair. I do remember hearing about that somewhere, sometime, somewhere,
Mhm.
someplace.
Out there somewhere, you know.
Yes. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope everybody is well, enjoying this holiday weekend. So, no matter where you are in the galaxy and what time of day it is, just thank you all for tuning in. And please, everybody, remember to please be kind. Take care.
Bye.